Thank you so much for jumping onto the security space. Quite a fun topic today. So, what we'll be discussing is a little bit between the similarities between martial arts and cybersecurity, and how the two fields there's a lot of sort of crossovers, as there is with many sports. But when Milda introduces herself, I think we're in good hands. So, Milda, please take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself, both career and personal, because that relates to this topic.
Thanks, Nick. So to start off, my name is Milda. I'm working as a senior manager, and I'm a consultant in a consulting business. And so far, I've been working primarily in sort of preventative side, maybe, because I was working a lot in GRC space and all sorts of testing and trying to get companies compliant with various requirements. But in the past few years now, it's about 6 years, I've been very much interested in a few more things. I've been actively training in martial arts, or it's actually Krav Maga, which is maybe more known for some people as just self-defense. And that's an Israeli martial art form. I'm always hesitant to call it martial arts because there's no art in it. It's really self-defense. And so to me, it became very interesting to look into the defense side of security, because that's, again, about defense and how can we be better at that part of the cybersecurity space, simply because I've picked up some ways of thinking, maybe while training as well. So that's my latest passion, I'd say, and something that I'm very keen on lately. So yeah, that's the topic today, and I'm very happy to tell you about it more.
Yeah, so let's try and draw the links then, if we can. So, so it's Krav Maga, isn't it? Am I pronouncing that right? Krav Maga.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I think probably for the audience, I follow a bit of MMA, so I'll be able to keep with you a little bit. But for the benefit of the audience, could you just describe a little bit what Krav Maga is in its normal form, and then we'll bring it to cyber.
Right. So Krav Maga is a fight technique. It's a sport, you could say, but I think the difference between actual martial arts and Krav Maga there is that you can do it for fun, obviously, but it has real purpose and function. So many people start doing Krav Maga because they want to develop skills where they can actually defend themselves. So it's not so much about competitions and being able to demonstrate your skill level somewhere, fighting with others and maybe, I don't know, competing professionally and so on. But it's real practical kind of martial art that could be very much useful whenever you're in trouble. And maybe that's also coming from the origins of Krav Maga as well, because it was created by an Israeli person back in the day of Second World War, when they had a lot of problems, obviously, and that was meant to help people to defend themselves really easily and effectively, so that they can run away from the police, for example, and hide themselves. Obviously, how much that was possible, and that person was working together with some other friends of his, because they were fighters, they were wrestlers, I think, and boxers. So they tried to combine as many effective moves and techniques that would be available for various people to learn quickly and apply them as best as they can. And that way, Krav Maga combines loads of different techniques from various sports. So you have elements of Aikido, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, and various others as well. So they take the best out of that and then basically just apply to Krav Maga. And then when Second World War ended, the same person who established Krav Maga moved to Israel, and he started training people there. And as probably some of you might know, that got adopted in military as well. And so now it's kind of known as military kind of techniques, or something that is primarily done in the military, maybe. And that's also interesting link with cybersecurity, I think, because cybersecurity also has a lot of military terminology and kind of links to military. And obviously, when we speak about cyber defense, many times we also think about nation states and all these, government organizations and so on and so on. So there are kind of links in that area as well. But if we think about overall what it is, the real link in my mind, at least from Krav Maga and cybersecurity, is basically the fact that it's very random. So Krav Maga is helping to defend, against situations that could happen absolutely randomly. So you walk down the street and somebody could be attacking you. Maybe you go down some car park, somebody could attack you, try to either steal your car or maybe drag you into a car. Any kind of, especially for women, I would say that is very realistic. And kind of similar thing to it happens with cybersecurity, I would say, because many times we speak about it as, and a very unfamiliar, dangerous territory where we set up a business and we are trying to, do the best as we can, but somebody could come out from around the corner and attack the organization. So that's also where I think it's very familiar. There are no rules. So Krav Maga doesn't have any kind of rules. There's no one to stand on the street and judge whether you did something right or the attacker, is allowed to punch you here or not there. And the same thing happens in cybersecurity. There's no one to police, so to say, no one to protect. So whatever we do is the kind of techniques that help us. If we don't do anything, that maybe there's no one to help us. And that's the kind of comparison, I think, in my mind.
Yeah, no, really well explained, and you're exactly right. Like, it's the real world, isn't it? It's the real world. Like you say, like you have your I'll relate it to anything, but I'm a big fan of MMA and the UFC, and it's 5 rounds for title, right? Fights, 3 rounds. It's all very regulated. It's in the cage. You shake hands. You go the other way. But on the street, it can be fighted to the death. You know what I mean? Sometimes. So
Yeah.
relating that into the cyber world is like, yeah, the cyber criminals, they're constantly evolving. They're constantly evolving as well. New forms of attack. You've got to be ready for everything. You can't just be specialized in one area. You've got to be aware of everything. It's the same with cybersecurity. Absolutely. So, I think
And
the
I
key
can
thing.
confirm that, yeah, because I started learning Thai boxing as well in the last year. So now I can also see the difference between the sport that is kind of, it has somebody to watch over, and then somebody who, you just do your technique, so to say. So there is a big difference, like, Thai boxing, for example, you can't be kicking to the groin. Krav Maga, go for it.
Yeah.
Or the eyes or anything else, there's a very big difference. But on the street, no, you can go for it.
That's exactly it. And I think you touched on the key thing there. The unique thing about it is the no referee, and that's something I want to sort of explore a little bit now. So why are we why are we comparing cybersecurity to a sport that has no referee? Like, bring it more to light in cyber, because, like you mentioned, yes, in the real world, obviously you've got the police, but are you referring to people working in cyber as the police, or what's the link there that you're trying to draw?
I would say the police would be something that is more. Um, I don't know that there would be like a referee that doesn't pick sides, but the people that work in cybersecurity, clearly you work for some kind of organization, or you belong to some part, so you would probably be in the defense side of the organization that is being attacked. So you are not you are not impartial like a referee would be, possibly. So I would say that's definitely not the police role that we are doing as cyber professionals. It's the defense side. So you could think about, maybe a security guard outside. That's the kind of security, more like they are just a guardian, the protector, but they are not there to judge between different parties involved in a fight.
So to check my understanding, and please, if I've not got it, please don't try and be polite. Correct me if you can. So I'm trying to put it into layman's terms in the sense of like I'm still just your everyday man on the street, but the company is kind of like the police is such as like they give you the structure like the police are a structure in society, but regardless you still have to come in and work in society, i.e. work in a company, and still got to be on your alert. You've still got to, those working in socks for example, they still need to learn cyber to benefit their company, i.e. let's bring it back to Krav Maga. You have to rock up to your training lessons week in week out to learn your skill set. You don't just turn up one day and you're brilliant. You have to be
Right.
like, you have to learn your lessons. Have I understood that well? I know it's a tenuous link.
Yeah, okay, yeah, no, I think I get what you're getting to. So I would say, so for me, in my mind, let's say, people working in the company, they are more like different limbs of the entire
Nice.
body.
Okay.
So, for example, you might have somebody doing as one arm,
Yep.
another team might be doing something as another arm, but they both work as part of the same body
It's got to
towards the
work
same
in unison.
direction.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So for example, if I think about craft techniques, the difficulty that the beginner has usually is coordinating the hands and the legs and everything to work together, especially if there are, let's say, several moves going one after another, and they have to practice to make sure that these different limbs work correctly
Yeah.
together. So the same thing in the organization. We have different teams that, for example, don't talk to each other. So that's why we have a
Coordinate and stuff.
saying, we
Yep.
don't know what left doesn't know what the right does, and so on. And so in that kind of situation, then again is the kind of comparison where the entire body should be doing the same thing. It should be moving towards the same direction, as opposed to one saying I'm somehow not related to this, or I have no idea, or potentially, when we train, we try to bring everything together, but if you never train, you can't expect that it's going to function well.
Yep. Yeah. No, I like that, and it's like kind of like the boardroom or the C-suite is kind of like the brain, obviously. Like, and to work in
Mm,
organisations where there's security first, i.e., their defence first, if you want to bring it into
right,
the
right.
fighting world, they'll always be one step ahead, won't they? Because they've just got it up there. Because to bring it again back to the fighting world, I hope the audience is sticking with this because we're flicking into it, but I'm sure we're doing fine. Um, in the fighting world, you can always get someone that is, game as anything, but is just like tactical, like just nowhere. But if you have someone that's got the brain as well, just to link everything up, like you say, if you have a company that links everything up, they will obviously be, never 100%. You know what I mean? Like there's, in the fighting world, like you even get some of the greats that will get one loss on their record. Do you know what I
Mm,
mean?
yeah,
Not
yeah.
everyone's like, like you say, Floyd Mayweather or Khabib or anything like that.
Mm.
But yeah, so I completely understand what you're saying there.
I would
So
say probably in terms of the brain, strategy is very important, especially when you have, let's say, close combat. Obviously, you then see what your enemy is not doing correctly, or potentially where they have weak spots. So that's when you can come in and attack. Now, let's say for Krav Maga, something that I think is very important, most important, and probably more interesting even, something we don't think about much, but also something we learn as part of the sport, is the reaction time.
nice.
So, there is again a lot to think about, because you don't want to do something that could harm another person if they don't intend to harm you. But if you feel the danger, you need to be in time to react. And that's something that actually we were discussing just yesterday in the intro course, where there is this connection between your head and the limb. And there is this split second where you have the time to react to what is happening to you, because your brain analyzes, is that a danger? Let's say, because you can either see with your eyes, you can hear, or you can touch as well. So that something that happens to you has a reaction time in your brain. The
Yep.
process then happens to see what is it that I need to do to react to it. if you happen to make a move first, then you have a stronger position to defend yourself. So that's again an important connection here in cybersecurity, is if you are faster than your attacker, you have better chance to win whatever the situation's in.
Yeah, so like we'll talk about those sorts of skills definitely. So speed is obviously really important in instant response. Is there anything else that we can like draw a link? Like, I know we've kind of already kind of talked about coordination, but what about power? Yeah, I might be reaching here, but yeah, I'm just trying to think. Is there anything in the cyber world
Loads.
Yeah?
Loads. So we already mentioned the speed and the power. So we can probably cover the key Krav Maga principles. So we say that it is very important to be fast, simple, and effective. And what that means in reality is not so much about, not necessarily about the skill. Of course, skill is important, but what it means, say, when we say simple, it's not that technique is easy or that that doesn't require any effort. Probably you need to train a bit for it, but the idea is that it has to be the easiest, the most efficiently, the leanest way of doing things. So let's say if I'm doing a kick, it has to be a straight line without telegraphing the moves, and that way then I can achieve it the fastest way possible. So
Yep.
in cybersecurity, for example, if you think about how we do things, we use probably various kind of procedures to, let's say, respond to an incident, but it could be not most efficient. Or not the simplest way of doing things. So, it might involve loads of people, it might involve a lot of conversations before, let's say, we pull a plug or something. So that's the simple one. The fast is again it's not because the person is fast, like it's not because I am fast, but because of the reaction time, and also because when I'm performing some kind of activity, I do it in the right range, in the right distance. So again, the response in any kind of incident is important in terms of how fast we react to it. And then efficient is, again, we in Krav Maga use a lot the sort of sensitive parts of the body to cause the most damage. So it could be, the eyes, the throat, the solar plexus, the groin, and anywhere where it's really painful. So it's unlikely that in cybersecurity we'll go and attack our attacker back.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we do that with a lot of body weight. So it's not, let's say, just the limb that does the strike, but we apply the entire body weight. So if you think about punching, for example, even in boxing, in Thai boxing, you want to make sure that the punch is really strong. In cybersecurity, probably the parallel is if you're going to do some kind of action, it has to deliver the best result, maybe,
Yep.
to say that like that. If you're going to do something, most of the time the attacker is going to understand that they are being watched or something is happening, that you detected them, basically. So you want to make sure that you can cut them off real quick without them, being able to move somewhere else, and then you again going to struggle with it. So that's probably again suitable Krav Maga principles to cybersecurity.
Definitely. No, really well put. And I kind of we've talked about it subtly, but I just want to bring it more to light now. And it's about threat intelligence. And recently, at the time of this recording, in the UFC, there's been a fight between Aljamain Sterling and Henry Cejudo. And in the post-match, sort of again, typical to how the UFC is not like Krav Maga, it's a little bit more regulated. But after it, they were hugging, they were handshaking, and Sterling, the champion, was saying to Cejudo, "You kept on adjusting, and I had to adjust to your adjustments." And they were very complimentary of each other. How the game plan one and game plan one ended up changing because of each other's game plan, and adaptability was key. Um, so talk to me a little bit about threat intelligence in the cyber world, because yeah, we've mentioned you've got to be sharp. Anything that you need to do to win, you've got to do. And you kind of said it in your last example with simple, effective, whatever you need to do. So could you bring that a little bit more to life from the adjustments that the cyber criminals have to make to the preventative measures in the cyber world?
Yes, that's a very interesting area actually, because a lot of people and in cyber world companies don't really think about it that way. So if you think about just kind of fighting, you just come out with your fists and you try to do whatever you can best. But that's not necessarily the smartest way of doing it. So you have to observe what your opponent is doing. So, you know, if they keep having their guard down, for example, you probably go and punch for the head. If they keep covering their head, they have their stomach uncovered. So again, you have that area to punch, right? So that is important to see what is the opponent actually doing. That will help you to achieve your own goal in that case. So in cybersecurity, I noticed most of the time organizations don't think about it that way. And also something that is important to understand is also your capability yourself. You know, for example, if you are not very good at either kicks or punches, then maybe delivering that punch or kick is not going to be very effective unless you train for it. So what typically organizations do, they collect information about random objects. So for example, if you have a fight with a specific person, most likely you will want to, let's say, see recordings, some kind of videos of how they were fighting, what kind of you know, techniques they use, how they move,
Yes.
what is special about, you know, whatever they do to find some kind of weak targets. And it's not just about martial arts, it's about any sports. I think is the same in football and basketball. When they analyze the team, how they work, what the strategies are, that's the kind of intelligence they gather and then adapt their own strategy accordingly. They obviously will practice to do that. They will have to train that activity to be successful. And then, so the things that I'm thinking about in cybersecurity, the kind of threat intelligence aspect is organizations go and collect information about various attackers or the various opponents, not the one specific that could do something to them today.
Yep.
And that information is it's not contextual. It's just something kind of random. It's just noise, as I like to call it. And also they forget that they could be themselves already having a trouble within their own organization. So something that I think is really important is not just looking around and seeing what is happening out there, but also looking in your internal environment and see what's happening in there. So that's where threat hunting comes in, and looking for compromise potentially that already happened.
Yep.
And that is, I think, something that is not having enough focus. Obviously, you should have your basic cybersecurity in order already before you do any kind of threat hunting, because that could be very difficult exercise in general. Also, another thing that I like to think about threat intelligence is also from the preventive perspective as well. So let's say if I think about it from Krav Maga side of things, is not only how I win the fight that I'm already in, or how do I defend myself, but how do I not get myself into that situation where I need to do that.
Yep.
So how do I, you know, maybe not go down that dark alley or some kind of dark park, or maybe how do I not get into, I don't know, some suspicious car, for example, if I need a taxi or something. Maybe I will try and find other ways. It's, in reality, is understanding the risk.
Yep.
So then we come back again to cybersecurity and risk management. If I really understand, you know, what could happen, I can prevent that situation from happening in the first place. So that is understanding my surroundings, understanding what kind of dangers in that particular area could be affecting me, and that in that case, I might not even need to apply the self-defense techniques in the first place. So that's kind of step even forwards, where I think Krav Maga also helped me a lot, just kind of understanding how the situation could be avoided in the first place. And for organizations, the cybersecurity organizations say, that's again understanding what kind of problems there could be, the kind of risks you're facing, where maybe you are not very good at, who would be interested in doing something bad for you, because you're walking down the street with some kind of valuable straight in your hand. Why not just take it out of you?
Yeah, no, and everything that you were saying there, I was like just I was constantly like flicking between examples, like yeah, well, is that? So I'm going to try and bring these to light, and they might be wrong, but the first thing that you were saying is about threat intelligence, and it just from all that great examples you were giving, I was thinking that probably links to Masvidal and Askren. So I'm going to try draw that example now, and it's like so. And I've used this on previous podcasts a lot about the low-hanging fruit in security, which it could be like a hairdressers, for example, who won't have a massive cybersecurity presence, if any. But obviously they still do a lot of PCI, a lot of transactions with card payments, XYZ, and they'll hold a lot of payments. Basically, they are, I would say, quite accustomed to a phishing attack, in the sense of like a company might go, oh, here's a discount on shampoo, and then therefore that's a product that is specific to them, and therefore they could get lured into clicking on said link because they don't have much cybersecurity in place. Now, link it to the fighting world. Ben Askren is a wrestler, Masvidal is a kickboxer, and if anybody hasn't watched it, it ended in sort of like 5 seconds. It was quick, effective, like you said, and wrestlers tend to shoot for the leg. Masvidal knew that he had the intelligence about the threat, and jumped up and kneed his head into orbit, and he was out like that. But all that planning was because of beforehand. It's like, let's just say Masvidal's the cyber criminal in this world. He knew exactly who he was up against. He knew exactly the attack that he needed to do, and he set it up as well. He set it up. He turned to the right. He sprang, and Askren, human instinct, just shot for it. So to put a bow tie on that, threat intelligence ran, chose his attack, delivered it to execution.
Exactly.
To do another example on what you said about sort of like that resilience mindset that you were kind of alluding to, is a sense of like, how can you not even get yourself into them positions beforehand, and again, it's all about sort of like how you can prepare yourself in the cyber world as well. I'm going to use the fight example first and then bring it back to the cyber world, in the sense of, I'm going to say Daniel Cormier and Stipe Miocic, they had a trilogy. In the first fight, Daniel Cormier won, and then in the second and the third, I believe Stipe won, but I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head. But essentially, in the first fight, Daniel Cormier is really good in a clinch, so really up close, right in your face, and he played to DC strengths. In the second fight, Stipe knew that was going to happen. He thought, right, how can I avoid getting down that dangerous alley, like you said, and he just worked the body. Whereas like Cormier's hands had to come low, like you say, and therefore he can't engage in a clinch because he was already the shorter man, and therefore that threat was eliminated. So you've learned from your experience, you've adapted to it, and you've grown that resilience mindset, and then after a while then you won.
Exactly.
And to finish off on that point is that in its sense, and I might be going off on a complete tangent here. Talking about AI, it's like human behavior is able to adjust to that. It's adjusted to its experiences where AI can't. I know we've got machine learning and this and that, but I just don't think I will always put sort of human behaviorisms on their experiences just that edge ahead. I don't know if we could be getting into another tangent here, but what's your view on that?
Ooh, it's difficult to say, I think, because I never fought a robot. It's difficult to know how they learn about it. But I always think that the advantage that people have about in kind of in relation to AI is the whole socio-cultural aspect, which machines can never grasp. The emotions as well. So, for example, human beings, obviously they are psychologically affected say, for example, I'm thinking about kind of fighting situation. Usually people come in, very determined, and they are a kind of ready to strike fast and really, it kind of scare their opponent. But you can win the psychological fight against the person if you consistently respond.
Yep.
If you consistently, for example, something that I really like, that my Thai boxing teacher was teaching me some time ago. Every time you receive a strike, you have to strike back immediately. It is not something that is gonna, happen after a day or after a long time period of time. You have to strike back immediately. That scares people because it seems to them that, anytime they will strike, there's going to be a response.
Yep.
So that way you can affect the opponent psychologically. And I would say, something that would happen, let's say an incident response situation, or the attacker, they probably would get demotivated. And I'm not speaking about, let's say, nation state, or so. It's more about your regular kind of crime gang, maybe, who are
Yep.
trying to find an easy target. If you strike back immediately, basically trying to cut them off, they will go looking for an easier target. They don't need to spend their effort on something that they will not be able to pick up. While, let's say, about AI and machines, they probably wouldn't be affected by that
Yeah.
kind of emotional side, because they
Yeah.
just maybe learn or pick up new techniques. So I don't know how that compares to to fighting in real world. I'd say that's something to explore, maybe.
Absolutely, we'll save that for another day. But Milda, you've been an absolute delight. I've really loved this one. Obviously, yeah, a sport very close to both our hearts. So maybe not Krav Maga on mine. Yeah, I'm a little bit worried if I came up against you in that. But yeah, no, you've been an absolute delight, Milda. I hope if anybody's got any questions, I know we were drawing links between the two. Please feel free to fire them into the comments. And then if anybody has any further, information they need to get off Milda, I'll put all their information below. But once again, Milda, thanks for coming on to the security space.
No worries. Thank you for having me.